guys want to talk about.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of For the Love of Wrestling, exclusively here on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Happy Tuesday morning. It's been a day. It has been a day. I mean, last night was the return to Raw for both CM Punk and Randy Orton. We're going to get into all that today. Good to see some of you guys here early. Michael Vasquez says, awesome. Daniel's here. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. We will definitely get to Punk's promo more towards the end. As you guys know, I usually go through the show the way it aired. So without any further ado, Raw began with the return of the Viper, Randy Orton, the Legend Killer, the Apex Predator. He says that it sounds like we have missed him as the crowd begins to chant, welcome back. He said he's had time to think of his accolades and everything that he's accomplished in his career. And of all the things that he had done, one of the things that he had never accomplished, never achieved, never been able to do was participate in war games. And now he has done that. And not only did he compete in war games, he was on the winning team. He talks about Dusty Rhodes and his legacy. And he talks about making moments within the WWE and how he has some unfinished business with the bloodline. He has receipts coming for every single member of the bloodline. And of course, we can't have an opening show promo without an interruption. So who comes out? Mommy. Rhea welcomes Randy back to Raw and tells him how the landscape has changed in his absence. Rhea lists all of Judgment Day's accolades and everything that they have achieved and says that unlike the bloodline, Judgment Day actually gets the job done. Randy takes a few shots at Judgment Day and at Rhea and tells her that Daddy is back home. Randy says that nobody tells Randy what to do, and Dom and JD McDonough attack him from behind. Randy RKO's JD and tells Dom not to go anywhere, that he is going to Adam Pearce to have a one-on-one match against him later on tonight. Of course, we would find out in the show that was made official. That was going to be our main event match for the evening. Jeff is here. Good to see you, boss man. Going to be in and out. Finally got a plumber out to the main house. Daniel says, Daddy's home. And I was expecting, just like the crowd last night, that Randy wanted to give Mommy an RKO. I'm sure he does, but we have got to slow build that. It cannot be the first segment back. We have to build to it because everybody wants it. And when everybody wants something like that, they've got to take it slow so that when it finally pays off, it means something. Stat Boy is in the house. Good morning, my internet fans. We're off to the grocery store to pick up Thanksgiving vittles for dinner tonight. Michael Gonzalez. Orton might be in the best shape ever. I agree. Orton has got to be in some of the best physical conditioning of his career. We then had a segment backstage with most of the babyface tag teams that were going to be in the tag team turmoil match, I didn't see DIY in there. They could have just been hiding, keeping quiet, but New Day, Alpha Academy, the Creeds, all backstage. Maxine Dupree, Ivy Nile were there, and Jelly Roll comes into the fray. And Jelly Roll, apparently a country music musician, not very familiar with his work, despite being a country music fan. Hopefully, I don't lose viewers for admitting that, but Tozawa gets his little groove on with his little normal dance. Xavier in the back with his catchphrase, calling Tozawa nasty. The first hour here is supposed to be commercial free, and then we go to a live backstage commercial for WWE Shop, hosted by Cody Rhodes. I was a little bit disappointed in this. It's supposed to be commercial free, but they're giving us a commercial. Yeah, I'm with you, Keen Mike. I don't know who Jelly Sandwich is. And yes, R-Truth killed it with his comedy. He did make an appearance in this segment that would piggyback later on in the night, talking about, Jelly Roll, the artist, and trying R-Truth doing his normal shenanigans, comparing it to legitimate jelly rolls and saying that he was going to go to catering to try to get the jelly rolls. And Jelly Roll is right here. It was funny but silly, but it's what we've come to expect from Truth, so I'm not complaining because I'm just happy that Truth is back. But that Jeff's saying that they had to show Cody with the winged eagle at his waist, making us believe. I get that, but it's supposed to be commercial free and it's still a commercial. For me, the highlight of the whole commercial was him moving the Roman Reigns figure to where it blocked the Stardust figure. I don't know if anybody else caught that. Go back and watch that segment, and as he's going through talking about everything, he slides the Roman Reigns figure so that it covers a Stardust figure. We then got the tag team turmoil match, and the way this works, for those of you that never seen a turmoil match, it's basically a gauntlet. Two teams start. Once somebody gets eliminated, the next team comes out, and so on and so forth until there's one team standing. Match began with Alpha Academy and DIY. Otis and Tozawa representing Alpha Academy instead of Chad Gable and Otis. I thought that was an interesting touch. Once they did that, I knew they weren't going to win. But I did hope that they would go at least through the first match. But they didn't. DIY got the W in that first match, and then the next team to come out was Indus Shear. Indus Shear completely dominated while they were in there, two big badasses. However, Johnny Gargano was able to get the surprise roll up, get the 3 count, and in come the Creed brothers. Creed brothers versus DIY was a pretty good matchup. Brutus Ball eliminates DIY. The New Day are the next ones to come out. This was another banner between these two teams. I'd love to see them in a legitimate tag match scenario. Another Brutus Ball. The Creeds pick up another victory here. Moving on to the final team, which was Imperium. And again, this was my NXT representing. Even though Imperium wasn't on the NXT roster for long when I started watching, because shortly after I started watching the 2.0 era of NXT, Imperium was being called up to the main roster. But this was a great representation of my NXT. Even still, I'd love to see another match, just like with New Day, an Imperium Creeds match on the main roster. I think it would be great. We do see the Imperium starting to fall apart, though, so I don't know if we'll get that trigger pulled in time. But the Creeds take out Imperium and become the number one contenders to the Judgment Day. Daniel says, I wonder if the Creeds are going to take the Undisputed Tag Team titles away from Judgment Day, even though it's early to put the tag titles on the Creeds. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think that Judgment Day has enough enemies in the back that the titles can be taken off of Judgment Day without making them look weak and start to begin the crumbling of the Judgment Day storyline. You know, when we get to the backstage segment later on in the evening with the Judgment Day, which right here, the next segment, Judgment Day is backstage. Finn Balor comes in after scouting the Creeds and says that they cannot take the Creeds lightly. And Priest kind of ignores him at first, making everyone wonder if Priest is okay. And he begins to go off about how, you know, he was the leader of the team at War Games. He was the one that got pinned. He disappointed everybody. And everyone's got to like kind of boost Priest back up, like, hey, big man, you know, it's okay. It was one loss. We're going to be fine. It's not that big a deal. But between everything that's kind of gone on in the last couple of months between Balor and Priest, between Priest and JD, not wanting to fully let him in, only recently letting him in, between Mommy and Priest, and, you know, where's your titles when him and Balor had lost their tag titles. Like, we've seen the seeds being planted a while for the Judgment Day implosion. And I think Balor and Priest losing the titles to the Creeds out of nowhere can be what really sets that off. And then again, you think about how Jey Uso has got beef with the Bloodline, or not the Bloodline, but the Judgment Day. You think about Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn. You think about Randy Orton. You think about the potential of CM Punk. You know, could Punk and the Creeds kind of become like a new CMFTR type of deal? Like they were starting over in AEW? Because Punk has always talked about wanting to help the younger talent. That was part of his whole point of contention with Adam Page. So he was trying to help Adam Page, and Adam Page didn't want to listen to him, didn't want to take his advice, wanted to do things on his own. So I personally don't think it's too early to put the titles on the Creeds. And I think it would be huge for the Creeds to topple the Judgment Day. You know, if this doesn't put the Creeds over, nothing will. Darren G's in the house. What's going on, Darren? Keen Mike even says, I think they drop them and Dom drops his too. Well, we'll have to see tonight on NXT if Wesley can get through Cameron Grimes, Bronson Reed, and Johnny Gargano to even get the shot at Dom come deadline. Darren G agrees with me. Keen Mike boos Adam Page. Y'all know I'm not an Adam Page fan either, but still, like, I see big things for the Creeds. I don't think they would have brought them up just to let them sit. I think they've had some fantastic matches since coming on the main roster. And even though they've only been on the main roster for a few months since the draft, I think that them with the championships rolling into the new year is a huge sign of what's to come. You know, it if we could get a super show type of feel on Tribute to the Troops instead of it just being SmackDown talent, I'd say have the Creeds win the titles on Tribute to the Troops on December 8th. But that would mean having to hold off, 2 weeks. So we'll see though. We then went to a Cody Rhodes promo. Cody came out to the ring, thanked his team from War Games, talked about Randy being a mentor and how much it meant to him when that pod opened up, that cage, and he realized that he was walking into his dad's match for the first time, and how Randy feeding Priest to Cody so Cody could hit the crossroads for the victory kind of meant everything to him. He welcomes CM Punk back in his promo and declares himself as the first official person entered into the Royal Rumble. Lights went dark and Shinsuke Nakamura appeared on the Tron, cutting another one of his promos. And apparently all of his cryptic promos have been directed towards Cody Rhodes. Says that he wants Cody to set him free. Promo ends, and when the lights come back on, Nakamura's in the ring, red mist to the eyes, and the segment ends. Michael Gonzalez says Cody versus Nakamura is a feud I'm excited for. Me too. Granted, I think everyone thought that it was going to be Punk he was calling out, but I think we need to do Punk versus Rollins first. Going back to the Creeds, Darren says, I say they'll win the straps, but maybe not on the first attempt. Possibly, but with the tag team landscape being what it is right now, there's not a whole lot of opportunity for rematches instantly. Kind of go back to the bottom of the line. And Judgment Day has defeated everybody. So, like, if they don't let the Creeds win, then what do you do? Darren says, doesn't someone in New Japan use red mist? Is that a sign of a future debut? I don't know. I am not very knowledgeable on New Japan. That would actually be a question to ask Noah Foster. He's probably the most versed in New Japan wrestling as far as the circle of friends here across the multiverse of media. We then started to get into the portion of the show that was really kind of lackluster to me. And I don't think it was the fault of any of the talents involved in these segments and matches. I just think that, like, they hit us with so much greatness in the first hour because of it being commercial free that they really kind of slacked off here in, like, the second act. First off was Bronson Reed versus Ivar. And there was just nothing about this match that captivated me. It was okay, but I've watched Ivar lately, and Ivar has been impressing me as a big man. Bronson Reed has impressed me as a big man. I love Sarah Logan. I feel like they are wasting her out there at ringside as Valhalla and not using her for matches, not trying to put her in the women's title picture. Like, at the very least, let her be a contender to Rhea. But this match just fell so flat for me for what I was expecting. And then for a double count out to be the finish, like not even a decisive to end the match. Very, very disappointing in my opinion. We then had Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark backstage. Zoe is frustrated about her loss at Survivor Series to Rhea Ripley, and Shayna tries to pump her back up like, you're still young, you're still new to the roster, you will get another opportunity. Nia Jax then comes in and kind of gets under Zoe's skin some. Shayna tries to step up for Zoe, and Zoe's like, you know what? I got this. Zoe challenges Nia Jax as a way to try to redeem herself. Nia accepts the match. Yeah, King Mike says this was the boring hour, especially this match, referring to the Bronson Reed Ivar match. The highlight from this hour, though, was R-Truth in the Judgment Day's clubhouse with the plate of jelly rolls, powder all over his face, jelly on the couch cushions, like totally playing this up for the yucks. And this was the best part of this hour. R-Truth just killed it. He was like, hey, I know you guys are looking for a fifth for War Games, and I want you to know I'm here for you. I'm volunteering. And it's like, War Games was 2 days ago. And R-Truth's like, did we win? And I'm just like, wow, really? Again, I love Truth. Truth is such a cool dude, but like, damn. I legit was waiting for Ron Simmons to walk in and just drop the damn. Everybody else thought it was great. I did hear R-Truth. Darren G, I agree. He is a national treasure. And he's also a former 2-time National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Champion, but that don't get mentioned on WWE TV for some reason. Despite Triple H being a huge fan of the National Wrestling Alliance and the 10 pounds of gold. We then had another ho-hum match, Nia Jax versus Zoe Stark. And again, this was a decent match, but it was so predictable. We knew Nia was going to get this one. It just, nothing to really keep me entertained in this one. We then had a backstage segment with Gunther, Giovanni Vinci, and Ludwig Kaiser, Imperium. And the Reign General wants them to handle the DIY problem. And at first, Vinci starts to speak up, hey, we'll take care of this for you. Don't worry about it. And then Kaiser steps all over. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm the one in charge. I make you a promise. We will handle it. And then The Miz comes in and issues a rematch challenge to Gunther. And Gunther gives Miz a little bit of respect. Maybe I was wrong. You do belong in the ring, just not against me. We then get a Seth Rollins in-ring promo where he welcomes us to Monday Night Rollins. The fans begin to chant for CM Punk, and he tells them to get it all out and calls Punk a hypocrite. Drew McIntyre proceeds to come out, and Drew says that he hesitated out of sympathy during the match that he had against Seth, and he wants a rematch because he will not make the same mistake twice. Drew says, I hear you. I agree you deserve a rematch, but there's a few other people that deserve a shot before you. And Drew's like, who? And Seth's like, well, next person to challenge for this title is going to be Jey Uso, who, of course, Drew wanted to get his hands on inside War Games. That was the whole reason he aligned with Judgment Day, was so that he could get his hands on Jey inside of the cage. Needless to say, Drew is not a fan of this decision. He snaps. He begins to beat Seth down. Jey Uso comes in for the save. Jey and Seth both double super kick Drew. And the two stand tall at the end. We then go backstage and we see Drew and Sami Zayn backstage. And this whole segment is about disappointment. You know, Sami tries to catch up with Drew to talk to him, and Drew's like, not now, Sami. Not now. I don't want to hear it. And Sami's like, no, you're going to listen to this. Because everything that you talk about, you know, all the anger, all the hatred you have to the bloodline, I have that too. You talk about being embarrassed in your home country, in front of your family, your friends. I had that too. And just everything that Drew lists off as his reasons for being so pissed, Sami had that same disappointment. The difference being is that Sami handles his anger and his disappointment differently. And Drew tells Sami that he's going to handle his business the proper way. He's going to start working his way back up to the championship, starting with you. So he's going to Pierce to get a match against Sami Zayn, probably for next week on Raw. We don't know officially yet. Yes, Sami. Boss Man says Drew laid himself open with that headbutt. Yeah, I couldn't catch what part of the headbutt busted him. I'm not sure if it was full on head to head. I'm not sure if maybe he caught part of the title belt. I wasn't paying attention enough because I was taking notes on the promo and not watching the screen. So I didn't physically see the headbutt. Keen Mike says, with so many stars, someone will get lost in the shuffle. Unfortunately, Drew has been the guy. So, yeah, I agree. Even more now with Punk and Randy back. Drew is definitely a lower tier main eventer, it seems right now, and it's very sad for him. You know, there's so many great champions and championship contenders, but when one man has a stranglehold on the title for over 3 years, it's kind of hard to do anything with those people. I enjoy Roman and his story. I acknowledge my tribal chief, but it's time for him to lay the belt down and move on. And Seth, you know, with the way they hype up his severely damaged back that he's been wrestling on for 4 years with an injured, broken back, he needs to lose that title, move on to somebody else. That way we can get some new life in these championships. I've talked about this a few times. Like, I am a fan of long title reigns that matter and make sense. But every title run doesn't have to be a year plus. Because when you do that, you end up burying some very solid talent. It's just one of those things. And Michael agrees. I'm not sure, Darren, if it was hard way or not. I wasn't looking at the screen when it happened. Michael says, I think Drew got more of the title than Rollins' head. Yeah, that's what I heard. We then had Tegan Nox and Natalya challenging Chelsea Green and Piper Niven for the women's tag team titles. Again, it's no secret by now how much I love Natty. This was a weak match. When you look at all the legitimate teams that WWE has right now on the main roster, and granted, it's not as deep as it should be, but you look at like Caden Carter and Katana Chance, you look at Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, you look at Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae, you look at Ivy Nile and Maxine Dupree, and you've got these two that are just kind of thrown together there. And then you wonder why they lose. You've even got Shayna and Zoe. It's just bad booking. You know, for every step that the WWE takes forward with their women's division, especially down in my NXT, they seem to take like one or two steps back when it comes to the main roster. The last few weeks, they've been doing some great stuff, 26, 23 women across however many segments. And this week, it was just like, meh. We need the extra time for R-Truth to do goofy spots, or we need the extra time for Jelly Roll. We need the extra time so that we can have. Eh, it's just badly written. They need somebody. Everyone's talking about now that Punk is back, maybe bringing AJ Lee. And I've said, like, dude, it would be so cool to have her come in, but just have her book the women's division. You've got Nick Aldis, the general manager of SmackDown. You've got Adam Pearce, the general manager of Raw. Have AJ Lee just be the general manager in charge of the women's division. She can be on Raw and SmackDown since the women don't get as much of the TV time, but just let her be the authority figure for the women's division. What do you guys think of that? Let me know in the comments. We then had a Randy Orton Jey Uso backstage segment where they more or less buried the hatchet. Jey had heard everything that Randy said in the ring. And so Jey was like, I wanted to find you before you could find me. It's like, I want to apologize for everything that happened back in the day in the bloodline. I'm not that guy now. I have left them. I'm not affiliated with him. And Randy's basically like, dude, if you're not with them anymore, we're good. I forgive, but I don't forget. So as long as you're not with them anymore, no hard feelings. Jake's kind of happy about that, gives us a yeet. Randy gives him a yeet back and go on about their way. Yeah, Jay was like, please don't RKO me. Yeah, exactly. Real life lessons in the segment. And I agree. If I'm Jay, I'm not trusting Orton. At the end of the day, Orton is a viper. He is a snake, and you don't trust a snake. Darren says, I think he'll get one eventually. Me too, but we'll see how long it takes. Again, slow burn like the one with Mommy. We then go backstage with Becky Lynch. Honestly, I lost track of what she was saying. I think it had something to do with winning at War Games. It was very lackluster. The one thing I remember Becky saying is the man has come around to Tennessee. After that, it was just like one of the teachers from Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. We then got, again, Becky is lost in the shuffle too at the moment. Everyone's talking about Becky versus Rhea. I don't want that match. The horsewomen need to stay away from the titles for a while. Charlotte, Becky, The only one I'd make an exception to right now is Bailey, but she does not need a long run if she gets one. But the four horsewomen need to stay away from the titles. They were the cornerstone of the women's evolution. But the women's evolution has moved past them. You know, we've got Rhea, we've got Bianca, we've got Zoe, we've got Nia, we've got Chelsea, we've got Piper. You know, going down to NXT, we've got Roxanne and Lyra, we've got Cora, we've got Blair Davenport. Like, we need to move on from the four horsewomen. Yeah, I want Rhea versus Jade or Rhea versus Raquel. Yeah, exactly. These are the people that need the spotlight. Call them the three horsewomen and a random girl who was there. Pretty much. So our main event match for the night was Randy Orton versus Dominic Mysterio. And this was a good match back for Randy. And I want to point out, Randy was always called one of the safest workers. So for him to be in the ring with Dom shows what they really want to try to do with Dom in the long run. However, the fact that Randy's first one-on-one match was against Dominic Mysterio shows the faith that they have in the young Mysterio. So for all of us that hate on Dom and boo on Dom and just like are so over Dominic Mysterio, think about the fact that he got the first match back with Randy. That says big things about what Triple H and Nick Khan and all the people in creative see for the future of Dominic Mysterio. Did he even take a bump in the match? Yeah, he took a couple bumps. He took a bump when he gave the RKO. The RKO to Dom was so satisfying, just waiting for the RKO for Rhea. You know, that shows they're going to build to it. You just got to be patient. Exactly. It shows that they have trust in him. And I believe I said it was the main event match, Daniel. Yeah. It was not the Raw main event. The Raw main event was the return of CM Punk, but it was the main event match of the evening. Jelly Roll got involved in the match in front of the referee, yet somehow that didn't call for disqualification. Randy, of course, got the victory like we knew he would. The main event of Raw, the return of the Second City Saint, the straight edge savior, the voice of the voiceless, the best in the world, CM Punk. Starts off his promo by saying that it looks like hell froze over, and not because and when he says hell froze over, it means the fact that he's back in a WWE reign, not the fact that a acknowledged Chicago Blackhawks fan is getting love in the barn of the Predators, which of course the crowd booed him for making a hockey reference like that. He kind of laughed it up. He was like, hey, I'm sorry. I had to. You guys know me. I thought that was so slick. The way he got that huge baby face response and with one line got heel heat. And then with the quick apology and a joke, immediately turned it back into baby face heat. That's sports entertainment. That is something that is missing from 98% of the modern day superstars. and dare I say 100% of the superstars over in the Jacksonville company. But I digress. Punk says that Saturday was a career highlight for him, and he says that he has changed. He mentions Dusty Rhodes, saying that an American Dream told me that if you speak from the heart, the fans will always believe it because it's the truth. He says that he is home, that the WWE, is where he belongs. He talks about how for 10 years we filled arenas with chants of his names because we never forgot him. We never stopped chanting for him. Over multiple countries and continents, we never forgot. He says that he is proud that the voiceless have found their voice, that he loves and missed us. He mentions Paul Heyman, talking about how a wise man once told him that to get everything he needed out of the company, he was going to have to leave and then come back. And that's exactly what he did. He came back for us. That he's been receiving nothing but love in the locker room since his return. How everyone is happy to see him. Everybody has welcomed him back with open arms. Well, almost everybody. Obviously, alluding to Seth Rollins. Everybody has seen the viral video of Rollins giving the middle finger to Punk during his return. Everybody has seen the interview that Rollins conducted earlier this year around the time of the video game release where he called Punk a cancer. He mentions AJ Lee and talks about how she's doing fabulous and sends her regards to everybody, which gets a massive pop. He says that some people in the back are afraid because the best in the world has returned to the company. Best in the ring, best on the microphone, even the best on commentary. I agree that this was good with him talking about himself and not tossing AEW under the bus like he did, which kind of makes him look goofy. I agree with you on that, King Mike. There were a few subtle jabs that I wish that he had taken where he could have indirectly referenced AEW without calling them out by name. Again, I mentioned on the No DQ review and I mentioned on Open Mic Night. You know, you go back to one of the first promos he cut against Hangman Adam Page, where he talked, or no, excuse me, it was about Eddie Kingston. When he talked about him being like the third best Eddie and the second best Kingston he had ever been in the ring with. You know, he could have done an MJF reference like that and made a comment about, you know, the last time I was around a guy with talent whose initials were MJF, it was Michael J. Fox. You know, it's nice to be working for a company for a man named Khan that isn't based in Jacksonville and isn't a fanboy. You know, he could have found a couple of different subtle jabs to take without just cutting basically a fuck AEW promo. You know, he could have maybe mentioned how come tax season next year, he's expecting a refund from the counterfeit bucks. You know, he could have done something with Adam Pierce and said something to the effect of, you know, you're you're the biggest drawing AP that I've ever been in the ring with, and maybe sometime we can get together and hang, man. Some of it's a stretch, some of it comes off as corny, but again, it harkens back to that AEW promo, references AEW talent that he had some issues with without calling them by name. So I just thought it would have been a good little move there. I'm not sure what everybody else thinks. So that was it for Raw. Overall, I really wanted to give this show an A plus or even just a solid A. But with some of that, we'll call it second act BS. The Bronson Reed Ivar match, the Nia Jax Zoe Stark match, the women's tag match. With all of that stuff, that was just very lackluster. I'm going to have to give it a B plus, unfortunately. I did think that Orton and Punk being back was phenomenal. I thought they were on top of their games. I thought the promos were great. Yeah, Manuel says an A minus. So right there, kind of in the same vein as me. A minus, B plus is similar enough. Daniel says he could have had a jab at Jack Perry too if he had wanted to. Agreed. Yeah, the second hour was just kind of meh. So I am going to do, as I always do, I'm going to take a very quick 40-second commercial, show you all the watch-alongs that are coming up across the multiverse of media, beginning with the tribute to the troops. We do not have Vengeance Day in here. That was just announced earlier today, but trust and believe, once we make an updated trailer, that will be in there. Just didn't have the time before going on the air today. But here's all the watch-alongs coming up. Get your last-minute questions or comments in, and we'll address them when we come off.
3, 2, 1. Here we go again. Right now, let's go. Me and you, toe to toe. We can rock, we can roll. Here we go again. Right now, let's go. Me and you, toe to toe. We can rock, we can roll. You see it?
So there we go. So much stuff already announced for 2024, and we know so much more will be in store. Daniel says Raw is a solid A for me. It's fair enough. All right. Well, that's going to just about wrap it up for today. I do want to say make sure that you guys tune in 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern to Stat Boy Sports Bar featuring Dory Lou. The food is hot, the beer is ice cold, and the seats are warm. So pull yourself up a bar stool and engage in some professional sports conversation with your barkeeps, Stat Boy Mike and Dory Lou. And then at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, A Simple Take will take the airwaves, both here on the Casa D18 Studios channel, as well as on A Simple Man's brand. We do acknowledge and understand the fact that it will be kind of going at the same time as the tail end of Stat Boy Sports Bar, but it is okay. We feel that it is different demographics and different fans that are wanting to listen to the professional football and basketball and hockey talk, as opposed to those that want to listen to us discuss Full Gear and Survivor Series. So it is not a huge deal for us if we have two streams going for the same time. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow for another brand new installment of For the Love of Wrestling, where I will be discussing tonight's episode of NXT. And until then, we will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a good day, everyone.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. for over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.